Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from DeltiasGaming.com here with an Ajax build that you're going to want to play. If you like high survivability, you love clearing the bosses and just being extremely durable, this thing is capable of hitting 100,000 defense, lowering the incoming damage, huge HP, group utility, and more. Let me walk you through one of my favorite builds in the First Descendant, playing Ajax. Okay, we're here with Ajax. Now, let's explain the skills, and then we'll explain weapons, Descendant mods, weapon mods, reactors, and external components. The biggest thing to know about Ajax is this Event Horizon passive. So what this does is it builds up Void Energy. Void Energy is your unique resource underneath your MP, the blue line. So it builds up in thirds, depending on when you use the skills, and then it transitions to this blue effect. The blue effect gives you an extra bonus depending on the skill you use, but Ajax builds up his unique resource to enhance a specific skill once it turns blue. And really the main thing about playing Ajax effectively is managing your MP, making sure you don't run out, and you timely use the most appropriate skill when you need to. So let's work left to right. Number one is Orbit Barrier. So Orbit Barrier, well, creates a barrier, reflex damage, and you can shoot through it. The most important part of this skill is that it scales in effectiveness based on your HP and your defense. The cooldown is 15 seconds and the duration is 15 seconds. So you can maintain 100% uptime depending on your MP. You can also extend the range of this, so this thing becomes huge and you can shoot through it. But you can see it comes back up very, very quickly. Unlike Kyle, you can place this down and move from it. You can also place this in front of allies and supports, or you can block things from getting shot if you're doing special operations as well. It's one of the best abilities in the game. Next up is kind of your stun trash clear ability called Void Walk. So it jumps forward and deals damage upon landing, stun. You can enhance this ability, but I would not use this as an enhanced skill. The skill is really nice for just clearing trash mobs. When you're bossing, it's not that effective to use. Some notes about the skill: if you just tap the button, it won't jump up very, very high. You can actually use this while you're in the air. Next up is this Expulsion here. So this deals damage to nearby enemies, inflicts knockback, and if you use Enhance, it increases base damage. And these two are your add clear, and they're tech by default. So non-attribute is your main Descendant attribute. These two are tech, these two are dimension. That's going to be important when selecting the proper reactor. So you can just jump in here with your second ability and then hit this, and that's kind of your add clear. One stuns, one knocks back, and they do pretty significant damage when you use them in conjunction, and they have lower cooldown, so you can have pretty good add clear with Ajax. This skill, along with Void Walk, are not going to be something you're going to want to use in boss encounters. It's mainly just for clearing adds. Now, there is a Descendant module that we're going to use for this build that changes this skill effect. It changes the skill into a defense increase by 50% to everyone in the range. And with our mods, we can increase the radius to 7 meters. If you use it as an enhanced ability, it'd be 10 meters. So this is more group play oriented, though it can increase your defense and almost reach 100k as well. With the cooldown of 8.1 seconds with our mods, the duration is 11.5. It does have the shield, the diversification, which increases the max shield amount. That is kind of a weird bonus, not that important, but defense will be very, very helpful when you're running in group content or with pugs playing bunny dying every 3 seconds. Give them the defense. They will survive a lot more. Another thing to note though with that specific mod is it changes it to a dimension skill, not a tech skill. Very, very important for a reactor choice as well. Next up is Hypercube. This is your longer duration ultimate skill. It's going to scale in effectiveness off of HP and defense. Those two skills are. So this is going to be a 360 bubble, and look how big it is. It is actually massive. Now you can use these two in conjunction actually. So what I usually do is rotate the barrier, and then I use the bubble. The bubble has a longer cooldown, so you don't want to use that all the time. The biggest thing to know about the bubble is this is what you should be spending your enhanced skill on, because it has 2 extra effects: firearm attack increase and explosive attack increase. Firearms 10%, explosive attack is 20%. This is very relevant in the current meta because most people are at the end game are playing Glay with rocket launcher spam with infinite ammunition. So the reason that's helpful is you can really take down the bosses with this and a Glay in your group. You're gonna be boosting their explosive attack or firearm attack, and this also applies to you as a bonus as well. Now, the main thing you want to do when you're starting a boss encounter, if you want, you can use the second skill and the third skill to basically preload your void energy. So when I usually go in, I have about 2 bars full. So then when the boss starts, I will put a barrier down and then I enhance my skill already. So that way, when we're parked or the boss moves and everyone's rocket spamming, I can boom, bubble us up. Inside the bubble, now we have protection from the barrier and or the bubble. I can get everyone's defense up and rocking. And we have this really good, nice burn at the start of the encounters. So barrier, main defense, hypercube, once it's enhanced, usually if possible, that's what you want to dump your enhanced skills on. Let's jump into the mods here. So Matrix Recomputation is going to be a very expensive mod. I think it costs about 5 million to lower the cost. Starts at 16, goes lower. This is an endgame one that's going to turn Expulsion to grant you a buff. Consider this not mandatory until you get to the end game and doing some of the sweatier group content. Next up is Agony, max MP and defense. We're going to look for rare purple mods that do 2 things for us rather than 1. Right here, what I would put in here if I had this mid-max and I had lowered some of my mod costs is energy collection, MP recovery by plus 57.7%. The most important thing with Ajax is just having enough resources to maintain that barrier. It's not the cooldowns, it's not the duration, it's really the MP. So you notice this a lot. So take the extra time, mid-max them, put that on that slot that's empty. Time distribution is going to be skill cooldown and max HP. Spear and shield is going to be defense and skill power. Frugal mindset, very important, skill cost and skill effective range. The bigger range that you have, the bigger those bubbles are. Also with defense and HP, remember, that's how our abilities scale. So it's a defensive tank mindset. You're going to look for mods that increase that stack together. Long distance maneuvering is helpful with Ajax because he's not very mobile. This will increase the charge time, but the range is really nice at 25 meters. There's a lot of alternatives to this one. Dual claw you can start with, and mid-air is another good option. Increase defense and increase HP. These are going to be your 2 beginner ones you're going to use primarily. So look to mod socket these. These are very expensive and you're going to run them most of the game. Then you have Stim Accelerant. This has a downside of negative 15% max HP. One of the reasons we run Agony, but it is the highest max HP mod in the game that I'm aware of at plus 234%. It will affect some of your resources, which is why I have energy collection. I recommend using that. But it's just a way to get your max HP very, very high. Psychological Victory, incoming damage modifier, negative 7.5%. MP recovery up, plus 13.8. Amplification control, skill effect range. That's a massive amount of skill effect range combined with frugal mindset to expand those barriers. And max shields. Max shields are not important as much. An extra secondary effect is not that bad though, but always go for defense and HP if possible. So if you're a beginning player and you want to pick this build up, focus on increase defense first, increase HP. The 2 rare ones you would like to get a hold of Battle of Stamina for increased HP and skill duration, and then Safe Recovery. It's just 4, you don't need to upgrade it, and it gives you outgoing healing, but incoming final damage, negative 4.5. You can run this on any build, it'll make you a lot tanky. Skill expansion is really important for increased effective range, and then skill extension for duration. These will be your 2 primaries that you're going to want to run, along with increased defense, HP, and then start to work on you can get them pretty early in the game. Now we're going to go into the weapons. So I'm using the Tamer. On the Tamer, you're going to want a firearm attack as your primary, weak point damage, bonus versus Colossus, since this is a boss killer weapon, and shield. The reason this is a good weapon is rounds per magazine. So you're going to sit there, hold that trigger with a high fire rate and a high base amount of damage. Now, the Tamer by default does not have a whole lot of critical rate, so we're not going to build into crit, we're going to build into weak point damage, and one specific mod called Mental Focus. So fire rate, negative 10%. You're like, that kind of sucks. Well, one firing, once you max this out, which is very expensive, it'll increase your firearm attack, I think, by 1% when it's fully maxed out, for up to 2 seconds, and it stacks up to 150 stacks. It will go away when you reload or change firearm. So you can just sit there with a big clip in your Tamer and just build up an enormous amount of fire attack just by holding down that trigger for as long as you can. This is specifically geared towards these boss encounters. I got 108 right there. Now, the Tamer by default does not have a whole lot of crit hit rate, so crit hit chance, or crit hit damage. So it's best to build for a weak point damage and go for a boss killing weak point machine gun versus crit. Better concentration. The other one can be used if you don't have anything else. Focus on rifling reinforcement, fire up rate, and then action and reaction. These are the 3 you're going to be using primarily on almost all guns because they're really, really good. Now you have weak point sight for weak point damage, have aiming for weak point damage. It's going to lower your accuracy, but you're not really worried about that on machine gun. And then rounds per magazine. This is helpful because if you stack a higher magazine capacity with mental focus, you're more likely to get 150 stacks, increasing your damage when you're boss melting while holding the trigger down with the tamer. And then you're going to want one elemental damage component mod here. So either fire or chill is very good. Just switch them out depending on the boss. If you don't know, when you go to the bosses or when you go into individual zones, it will tell you specifically what they're very weak against. So you need to structure your weapon and loadout for specific bosses and or zones. But be aware the zone will tell you as well. So running boss rounds, you're going to do Tamer. Running just trash mobs, you're going to do Thunder Cage. Second weapon I like is this hand cannon, Nastria, did I say it right? Devotion. The reason I like this, and this isn't fully mid-max, but the unique ability gives a defense debuff of 3 seconds when you're hitting weak point damage. So when the boss transitions into like a phase where you have to kill canisters, or whatever you want to call them on the specific boss, you can aim for those weak point marks, debuff it, or hit the boss if you don't have any general rounds and debuff it. So you're always adding some type of element of group utility, or you're able to do a good amount of damage yourself. It does have a secondary effect of MP cost, and it recovers shields of allies. Do not hit your buddies with this. It's a ridiculous amount of MP for almost no shield, and shields aren't that good anyways. You can run Greg's Reverse Fate, very easy to get. There's also some sweatier weapons that people have that are very far into the game, but for right now, these two are very easy and accessible to get a hold of and applicable for almost everybody. Third weapon is a flex spot. So Sigur's Proof you can get in the battle pass, so everyone has access to this. What's nice about this launcher is you aim down sights and you can stack all of these little explosions, and boom. Once you let go, it blows up. It also triggers the burn status effect. So it's going to do more damage the more sticky bombs that you put on it. So think of it as a burst weapon if there's a mechanic or just like a damage phase where you just have about 4 or 5 seconds to do damage. Load it up with sticky bombs, boom, swap to the tamer and nuke it down. Now, this is a flex. You can do a shotgun like something like the Subconscious. You can do a sniper rifle like Supermoon, something here. Make sure it matches your reactor. That's extremely important. Now, let's switch gears and talk about the reactor. So, reactor here. You can see I'm going to go with this one here, Materialized Phase. So, the T and the Z are both light up. So, that empowers the two outside abilities, our barrier and our bubble. Now, if we go back to our Descendant module and we actually change this one, add the Transcendent module, you can see it lights up green. It actually changes it to a Dimension skill. So, another reason to have this specific one. If you're doing trash mobs, you're going to want the other type that buffs the expulsion and buffs the void walk damage one. But since we're doing bubbles, that's what we're going to have. We're going to look for the launcher weapon class equipped, or whatever back bar weapon you have like a sniper or a shotgun. Now I have skill duration up and sub attack power, not optimal. You want reduced skill cost and increased skill duration if possible. And there's a bunch of other combos there, but it's very hard to get gold quality mid-max what you want. So stick with something simple, a purple one that you don't have to have a specific ultimate weapon, and this will get you by for most of the game. Now, external components. So I have a bunch of set bonuses, and Annihilation's a really good one. I have the 4-piece set, and I've used it quite a bit. It's going to increase your skill duration. The 4-piece set is firearm attack, increased proportion to the ratio of HP to HP lost, up to 26%, the long tooltip. When HP is 50% or lower, MP recovery is negative 22. HP recovery is up, though. So it's going to tank your resources, but it will give you a lot more firearm attack. So the 4-piece is really nice if you're really trying to do damage with Ajax. For our specific build, we want to be a tank. So the 2-piece skill duration is nice. And it stacks with the 2-piece skill duration Tomb Vanguard, which is 25% increased defense. That is a massive amount, and you can get this pretty easy just farming the dungeon. So look for Tomb Vanguard on almost any build just to increase your survivability, or swap to a 4-piece set like Annihilation or Bravery later on at the end game. On the specific traits that you're going to want, these are not mid-max, right? So I would go HP and defense. Defense is very easy to get ramped up. HP is a little bit harder depending on your base stats. So look for those two. And for a third drop, you could go with an elemental resistance or something with recovery. I would try to avoid shields with that ever possible. You really don't care about shields. And if you have really low shields or like no shields at all in your mods, you can slot an Iron Will. So when shields are at 0, defense is plus 32. This ramps up very well, giving you an enormous amount. So it's a way to get a huge amount of defense on any build that runs low shields. So when it comes to playing this specific character, whether you're solo or in a group, your main way to play it is using the barriers and bubbles back and forth. You're going to look for trash mobs or a little roly-polies that you can kill and pick up blue bricks to maintain your resources. You're going to use Void Walk only to clear as and or to close the gap if you need to. You're going to use your 3 key for AoE damage, or if you have that Transcendent mod as a buff. The main strength of Ajax is he's able to put these barriers up and prevent damage from your highest damage dealing characters. Specifically, Glay right now is one of the highest damage dealing characters. So you want to protect her if she's in your group, because the more she can just sit there and peel back and shoot rockets or her weapon, the more the boss will be melted and absolutely die. Now, this specific build can be modified for a little bit more damage, but it's just easier for a lot of players just to survive, put up some barriers, shoot guns, do a little bit of AoE, and absolutely dominate the First Descendant. So if you got something out of this video, please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment on what build you'd like to see next, and I appreciate you watching.